thank you for coming to the 41st Hong Kong International Film Festival, this screening of Personal Shopper. And we're very honored here today to have the director of this film, Mr. Olivier Assayas, to have a masterclass with all of you. Welcome, Mr. Olivier Assayas. I was first talk to you, ask you a couple of questions about the film, and then perhaps later I will let the audience ask you questions directly. But first of all, the first thing I want to ask you is that this film is called Personal Shopper, and it's kind of a ghost story or a film about spirits. But why do you have to give the background of the main character as that she's a personal shopper? Why is this job important for the film?
Well, it's I suspect it could have been any job really, but it happens to be that specific job. But it's I think I kind of needed the idea, what I initially wanted was inspired by a character who is torn between, or who is defined by the tension between the job she does to make a living, and she does not really like it. She does it as well as she can, but she doesn't give her any genuine satisfaction. It's a very dull and alienating job. And simultaneously she's on some sort of spiritual quest, which obviously is the most profound and better part of her. So, I mean, I thought that in a very material world, in a world that's getting more and more material, the fashion industry is the epitome. There's nothing more superficial than having a job about the surface in a superficial world. But that's not the end of the story. I think it's I think that I was interested in the fact that it was also something the character had an ambivalent relationship with. I mean, she, as much as she despises fashion, there is also something that attracts her, because it's also a form of art. It has to do with beauty, and also it may have some answers for her in terms, because she's looking for herself. She's looking for some sort of new identity that would grow out of her grief. And I suppose that she questions every dimension of herself, including her femininity, and possibly there's an answer there, in the fashion world for her.
And apart from being in a fashion world, she's also an assistant to an actress. And
it's more like a celebrity.
Okay,
she's an actress who doesn't know acting.
But this is quite similar to your previous film, Clouds of Sils Maria. It seems to be a continuation of her character from that film.
No, not exactly, because the it's in Clouds of Sils Maria, which was really about the interaction between two characters, like a famous actress and her young assistant. It was all about aging. Is how you age, how it's perhaps more difficult for an actress, because her face is just blown up on a big screen for everybody to watch every wrinkle or whatever. So, but it's pretty much a film about aging, and I think the celebrity part of it, which is part of, you make a movie about a movie star, you have to deal with modern celebrity culture, because it's simply part of it. It was more played for laughs. I think it was like the comedy side of the film. Here it's different. I mean, the one thing the two movies have in common is Kristen Stewart, and the fact that yes, she plays an assistant. But I suppose that the reason why Kristen inspires me, that kind of characters, it's because I think that the fact that she is herself so much part of modern celebrity culture, the fact that she's so much, so part of that kind of scandal internet culture. It's like a veil. It's more like something that kind of blocks us from seeing the actual person she is. So I thought that in both movies I needed to throw this burden of celebrity on someone else. To have her rid of it. So what I am saying is in both movies I have to establish that what I am interested in is Kristen, the person, stripped from that from that curtain, from that veil of celebrity, so in a certain way it allows the audience to see her as the real person she is.
Is this part of the reason why there is a scene that Kristen has to unclothe and then put on celebrity clothes in the middle?
It's not so much celebrity clothes. It's something that makes somehow it's a step behind accepting her femininity or something like that. I mean, she's very tomboyish, and I think part of looking for herself includes questioning her own desires, her own fantasies maybe, and also how she has how eventually there's a possibility of transforming herself that way. But no, it doesn't really have to do with celebrity. I don't think that the character of Maureen is attracted by celebrity at all.
It's very interesting that in this film you placed Kristen Stewart in this role that she don't really need to interact with many people. For most of the time in the film, she's always interacting with different devices like a computer through Skype or the iPhone or just text messaging. And most of the time we only see her alone, perhaps in a house, in a hotel room, with the clothes, which would be, I guess, would be very difficult for Kristen to grasp. And actually, there are many emotional scenes during these scenes. Is it difficult to direct her, or how do you collaborate with her in this way?
Well, the film is very much about loneliness. And it's about some specific sort of ultra-connected modern loneliness. It's like now. I think that the way we use our screens and the way we use our smartphones, in terms of how they connect us to our family, friends, relations, whatever, and also how we kind of add an externalized additional memory to our brains, is a major transformation in terms of the human identity, and in a certain way, it kind of redefines also what we call loneliness. But yes, in this film it was pretty. I think it was very challenging for Kristen. It's very challenging to go through the emotions of Maureen, and it's also very challenging to keep that kind of intensity when you don't really have an actor in front of you, but you have, again, a phone screen or something invisible lurking around you that you have to imagine. In that sense, I mean, I've always said that this movie was very much defined by the collaboration with Kristen. I think she's artistically involved in this film more than an actress usually is in a film, because again, she's on her own inside the shots. I mean, I kind of design the shots, I define them, I explain her basically but the pacing what exactly will happen is completely dependent on her. It's not something I can design or control. It's really something that she's creating on her own within the shot. So in that sense, you know, it's her intuition are essential to what is going on and how the audience will interact with the film.
How did you shoot these films on set? I mean, do you have someone reading her lines from the phone? Or?
No. She was actually receiving. We had like a prop man with a phone who was sending messages.
Actually, the text messaging is going on.
She's reacting to messages that are actually arriving on her phone. But you know, this was so absurdly complex because it sounds simple when we say it like that. But for instance, when I was filming her, when she was receiving those text messages, I had no idea what exactly was going on the screen, right? Because you know, I only have a video of what the camera is recording. So it's only in the editing room that I kind of figured that, oh, here she's reacting to that line, here she's reacting to that other line. Oh, now I understand what she was doing, because when I was watching it, I only understood half of what she was doing in those scenes.
For the past 10 years maybe, there are so many films, Hollywood films or from different countries, that would try to put text messaging on the screen. And there are so many in this film. How did you plan to put this on the screen like this? I mean, you just film the phone itself without putting the text on the screen?
No. We had I mean, the thing is that we did a lot in post-production because I was not so happy here or there with the wording, or we had some technical problems, you know, and don't get me into the complexities of that because it's endless. You know, we were shooting in the Czech Republic, so you have the logo of the Czech Republic that appears on your phone, so you have to erase it. Some of the scenes we were shooting, I don't know, in France, then they're supposed to be in England, so we had to erase. Sometimes the time of the call it pops up, sometimes it does not. Sometimes they are green, sometimes they are blue. You know, it's no end. It's no end. Sometimes they come in. Sometimes you have those kind of, you know, three blinking dots. Sometimes they appear. Sometimes they do not appear. So we had to make sense to give a logic. So we had to do so much work in post production to make all those screens coherent. And still, you know, it's you know, it's really interesting the way, because when you mention that it's not been done that much, it genuinely has not been done that much in the sense of I can't think of a movie where you would have the actual tension or the actual dynamics of a real text messaging conversation. They use as plot points or just to you know, as a narrative device, a text message, but nothing. It's not exactly the kind of specific tension you have when you're having a text messaging conversation. And it's really interesting because people have a very intimate and very personal and very jealous relationship to their own relationship. So, you know, it's so funny. I don't really read much press, but you know, there was some guy who was having some kind of geek, you know, blog on some website who said, "Well, let's check how they did in representing the text messaging. So this they get right, this they don't get right." And of course, it's totally impossible that she receives text messages when she's on the train. And you know, I kind of had a double take. You know, I mean, what do you mean? People don't receive text messages on trains? What do you mean? You know, it's so you know, you generate strange reactions.
I think the scene that works the best through text messaging is the one where when she turns on the phone again, and then the guy just tells her to go to a hotel, and then he's coming, and then 3 minutes ago he said he's coming up, and then he says at the door. It's so presented so well that it's like a thriller of the best kind, but it doesn't have to be very difficult to use the shots. It's just simply text messaging.
Yeah, but it has to be the right pace. I mean, we redid that shot like many times to get it right, to get the pacing of the text messages right, and we ended up speeding it up, then slowing it down, and so that you have this kind of strange flicker, which also is part of the tension of it. You have very subtle. I mean, the viewer has very subtle reactions to it. So you have to be extremely precise, and the fine tuning of those shots is. But that scene also does have that tension, because basically it's the tension that has been building up in the film for a while at that stage.
So are you a person who likes to use text messaging or other devices a lot? That's why the film has a lot of it
Who texts? I do. I think that most people do text. I think it's I think it's become part. It's not. It's part of how we communicate. It's part of how we live. It's part of how we work. It's become part of our lives, and it's disturbing because it became such an intimate part of ourselves. I think it has transformed us in many ways. It has had much deeper, profound, far further reaching effects on our identity than is usually acknowledged.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about the ghost spiritual part of the film, because we can say that this is a ghost story. There are scenes that has a shadow at the back. It seems like a ghost story, but it's not the conventional or traditional style of a genre film kind of a ghost story. How do you come up with the idea to present the spirits like in a film?
So that's different questions, but to answer the easiest one, I suppose, it's how I represent. Obviously, I'm not trying to represent ghosts the way they are represented in recent genre films. I'm not going to go to make something that's so obviously digital, and my reference point was more like the spiritualist photography of the late 19th century, meaning dating from a time when people genuinely believed they were actually seeing ghosts or having conversations with ghosts, communicating with the spirits. And at that time, the medium used photography. It was very crude superimpositions. So when we look at them now, it feels very naive, but still fairly scary. But at least it gives a notion of what people experienced. And also when we also use descriptions. There's a lot of descriptions by medium of what they saw during the seances when they were invoking those ghosts. And we tried to stick as much as we could to those descriptions. So there's something kind of fairly documentary in the sense that we try to reproduce the experience of the medium and kind of share it. It's always more or less the same pattern. Something, a light appears, gradually something turns into something that has some kind of humanly shape, and then it vomits an ectoplasm, which is supposed to be the materialization of spiritual energy, something like that. So that's what we use as a blueprint.
At the end of the film, there's, I spotted, of course intentionally, there's a shadow right at the back when Kristen Stewart is sitting in the yacht, and he's moving across across the screen so that everybody can see, and then there's the broken glass. I heard that that's the genesis of the film. Is that true?
It's not exactly the genesis of the film, but it was pretty much where it was kind of all leading to. I even had this set built based on that shot. You know, it's like this was made in a studio, meaning we built the house and we built the garden. Because we could not shoot outdoor. I mean, I needed this kind of outdoor scene, communicating with the interior of Lara's house. We were shooting in December in Prague, so that was unthinkable. So we had to basically build it. Because for some reason this moment was essential because it's really the moment when she loses faith. Because ultimately connecting with something you really long for, which also in some sort of spiritual quest, it does involve faith. And at that moment, she has lost faith. She has just explained to a friend that her brother's gone. He won't come back. She's come to terms with it. There will be no sign, and she will leave like the next day. And at that moment, if she had turned around, she would have seen her brother, but she had lost faith. And to me, that was very important because she has a second chance. You think, oh, she's missed it. It's gone. It's finished. But ultimately she gets a second chance, so I suppose hopefully there is something satisfying. I mean, it gives a sense that she finally deserved to reach her goal.
But even for the second chance, she still questions herself.
She questions herself. Well, you know, she kind of understands that whatever will give her, I mean, whatever the answer is, she will find her within herself.
You mentioned about specific mystical things that happen, the photography thing that happens about around 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many things that in a film that recall some silent films. Mm-hmm. There's footage of a film, it's set from the 1960s, but mm-hmm. There are also footage at the beginning when there's talking about the paintings of Clint.
Yes.
And I kind of spotted a shot that's very much like a Fritz Lang film.
It's a still from a Fritz Lang film. Uh-huh. It's a still from Mabuse.
Dr. Mabuse, right? Mm-hmm. And fade outs in the film that over time it kind of gives me a feeling that you're trying to create a sense of feeling like the silent films.
You know, it's not exactly intentional, but thank you, because you know it's something that I care so much about. I mean, I think that the greater art form was the silent films. I think that I have this obsession with silent cinema. I think it was like a superior form of cinema, and I think there is an intensity, there is a beauty, there's a spirituality in silent filmmaking that talking movies have lost. I mean, it took movies a long time to get back wherever they were when they were at it during the silent era. So I am very influenced, I think, by the syntax, by the way, the narration of silent film, by the mystery of silent films, especially when I'm making movies like Clouds of Sils Maria or a personal shopper that have to do with the invisible. I think that the silent films were better at filming the invisible than.
And also there is the undressing scene of Kristen Stewart. You accompanied it with, if I'm not mistaken, a song by Marlene Dietrich.
Yes.
And there's a different use of the song because it seems to be diegetic sound,
yes.
and then it seems not.
Yes.
Why did you choose that song?
Yeah, be patient. It's a long story. I'll try to make it as short as I can. But you know, I think that what inspires me when I write movie, not when I write movie, but like when I start preparing my films and trying to imagine how they will feel like, it's not so much images as sounds. And I usually, you know, put aside in my iTunes library tracks that kind of, you know, feel like the mood of the film, and very early on, this Marlene Dietrich song felt like it was part of the film. I had no idea why or how, but you know, it's my mother listened to it. I mean, my mother had a Marlene Dietrich record which I liked a lot, and I suppose it kind of has to do with my mother, and who was Hungarian, Austrian and Hungarian, so I suppose hence the Marlene Dietrich connection. And I thought, when I was shooting, I thought I would use that song on the scenes when Kristen is biking in Paris, when she's on her moped, and when I started editing the film, I tried the song on those scenes, and it absolutely did not work. It was just like all wrong. So I forgot about it. And much later, you know, I mean, I was watching the film like for the, you know, the first, second, third, fourth cut. I'm not even sure. You know, I kind of missed some background sound for the moment when she is looking on her computer. She goes on this kind of celebrity website, and she's looking at the photos of Kira dressing with the stuff she has been buying for her. And I thought, oh, maybe for this tiny moment we could use the Marlene Dietrich song. So we put it there. I liked it a lot. We screened the film again. I said, well, you know, I started discussing with my editor. I was so frustrated when the song ended. Why not let it linger a bit? So screening after screening, it lingered and lingered and lingered until I ended up using it twice in a row, and it covered the whole scene.
And I think that the sound design in this film is very, very specific and very special, especially when in a scene where Kristen Stewart is in the hotel room, and it seems that the spirit has followed her upstairs. There are children's sound playing in the background, and there are so many scenes with special sound designs. Do you have anything to say?
Well, because it's you know, you notice it because usually genre films are like covered with music. They have like music like non-stop. Here we have a couple of moments with some music, but little. And it's mostly about silence. It's a lot of it is about darkness and silence. So all of a sudden you start listening to stuff you wouldn't be listening to, and all of a sudden you become aware of the subtleties in the sound design that become very important, because especially when in scenes that are in darkness, or when she's trying to communicate with something invisible, all of a sudden everything echoes. You know, everything all of a sudden just becomes meaningful because we're tense the same way she is tense.
Okay, I think I'll let the audience ask the questions now. So there are two microphones over on both sides, and for those who would like to ask a question, you can come up and line up for your question. And remember, please do not talk about your own opinion for a long time, and try to restrict each one would ask 2 questions the most. Okay? So. Anyone yet? Anyone coming out? Sorry? Yes, yes, there.
Hello. Good evening. Yeah, I quite enjoyed the film, but I just had one question about Marina's. About she in the hotel, and I asked the counter about who booked the room and paid money. I just can't understand. Is it Marie is like doing like herself, something like that, like a lunatic, something? You know what I mean? Like
she asks who has been paying for the hotel room, and they tell her the hotel is booked on her name, but obviously she hasn't paid for the room, so but there's no name because whoever has paid for the room has paid in cash.
Yeah. And
also they have no trace of the person who actually booked the room.
And also one more question about the jewelry. The jewelry, like in the end, I mean, the jewelry. Suddenly in Marie's house, right? Just the jewelry, the carriage, the jewelry. You know what I mean? Like the film say, Marie tell the police, okay, and so leave it. I mean, leave the jewelry in the house, and then leave. And why? Just can't understand. And why the jewelry? Okay. Suddenly
in her house.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like because it's like maybe you try to try to say something, but I just can't understand.
It's okay. Don't look too much for logic in my film.
The spiritual. This is like, well.
No, I mean, I understand what you mean. It's basically, she realized, obviously, I mean, the murderer took the jewels with him, but obviously he has the key to her place. And he has brought the jewels, and he has put the jewels there in her place, meaning he has access to her studio. But you know, it's I have excellent answers for all those issues, but I don't think they're important. I think my answers are not important. I think your questions are valid. You know, I think that movies are about questions. And not so much about answers in many ways. So, you know, I think that it's a movie where I leave doors open for interpretation, and it's a way of appropriating the film for the audience, because I can give boring answers for the logic of everything, but ultimately it's not that interesting. It's not beneficial to the film, I think.
But why you put that scene? Because it's I really enjoy the whole thing. But that is make me feel a little bit maybe not really clever. You know what I mean?
You mean the jewels? The jewels scene?
Yeah, that is make me feel a little bit not clever. You know what I mean? The whole thing, I really enjoy the whole movie. But that part, I just thinking because I just thinking the whole thing like talking about the spiritual. But that moment. Make me feel a little bit.
It's confusing. You mean?
A little bit confusing.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the whole movie.
No, but I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean, but it's. I don't know. You know, it's. Maybe it should have. Maybe it needed more explanation. I don't know. Maybe
because it's like I really enjoy it. And suddenly,
okay, you're repeating. Okay, I'll just ask questions. Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
On this side, yes.
Bonjour. I'm not going to be that entertaining, but I'm fascinated by the geopolitics of the film, which I read in the light of Demon Lover and Boarding Gate. You have a personal assistant who is British. She works in Paris for a celebrity, Kim Kardashian kind of American celebrity. And then it continues, and then we end up in Oman, which is, I have to say, at least for me, totally unexpected. And then you add something very interesting at the level of a production, which is that you shot part of it in Eastern Europe. So it seems that in your recent movies you are saying something about this blurring of national boundaries, and here we have a ghost who is traveling, which is against the traditional vision of a ghost attached to a place. So could you talk a little bit about this geopolitics?
Yes,
Thank you, Olivier.
It's you know, it's I liked the idea. I mean, when I imagined the character of Maureen, she was a bit like a ghost herself. You know, I mean, she was half living, half dead. I mean, in the sense that she's someone who has lost not just her brother, but her twin brother, meaning like a half of herself, and she's struggling to become one again, to be one person again, and I like the idea that this process of grieving, of mourning, was in a strange city. She's a foreigner in Paris. She doesn't have her roots there, she doesn't have her family there, she doesn't have her past there. She's just driving around, carrying bags from point A to point B, just like floating on the surface of the city, and trying to connect with something that is ultimately not there. And she works as some kind of proletarian of the fashion industry, which is an industry which is kind of based in Paris but has become international. It's like it's one layer of Parisian lives where people are speaking English, and they are you know, they are constantly in transit and connecting with the rest of the world. So that's the interesting part of globalization. The less interesting part, or the more frustrating part, is having to shoot in fucking Czechoslovakia. You know, that was not meaningful and actually a burden. But it has to do with the fact that it's so expensive to shoot in studios in Paris, which makes little sense ultimately, because, you know, we are a French film, we should be able to shoot in France. So, but no, I mean, I'm kind of joking, because your question actually has a point. The thing is that I kind of like the idea of shooting also some exteriors in Prague that are supposed to be Paris. I mean, there's a couple of Parisian flats, of Parisian exteriors that actually are shot near Prague. So it gives this kind of eerie feeling of alternate reality. You have a sense you are in Paris, but then it doesn't exactly look like Paris. You're not sure where you were. It gives it adds this kind of sense of unsettlement, and also Oman is. You know, I kind of like the idea that she has lost faith. She has lost faith, and she will go to this place where eventually her boyfriend will materialize, like the abstract boyfriend she communicates via Skype with. And ultimately we never get to see that guy. We never get to see the real life guy, but instead she's facing herself like a mirror. And I liked it. You know, to me it was about the desert. It was about really going to the desert, where all of a sudden there's nothing left. It's just her silence, and all of a sudden, when she's facing herself, when she's finally facing herself, she kind of gets some sort of answer. She kind of understands that all the way it was about something that was, I mean, the answer she was looking for had been within her all the time, something like that. But to me it was the idea of this completely rarefied, empty, abstract landscape, where all of a sudden you are at the end of the world. There's nothing left beyond that. That's where the film had to end for me. I mean, it was part of the film. You know, it's. I think I kind of write with a logic that is more the logic of dreams, or the logic of poetry. And for some reason, I knew that this movie, wherever it was heading, would have to end in the desert.
Okay. Another question over here.
Hi, how exciting to meet you over this microphone. I assume as a filmmaker, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have many ideas for films coming in your mind. Maybe that's true, maybe not, but is there a time where you decide that that's not an idea, but it's gonna be a film, you ditch the other ideas and you pick that idea?
Yeah, I have an answer to that. The thing is, I usually come out with sketches with the notion, oh, here's a character, that's interesting, and I get kind of worked up, like, oh wow, yeah, this works, this is interesting, this is a film, and after 2 days I've forgotten about it. And sometimes it sticks around for a week, sometimes it sticks around for a month, and then it's gone. But sometimes it kind of stays with me, and it's not the. Sometimes it's not what I should be doing. It's not. There's no logic to it, but for some reason I can't get rid of those characters. I can't get rid of those ideas. They keep coming back to me, and they gradually impose themselves on me. And at some point I need to get rid of them, so I write a screenplay.
Thank you.
Okay, another question over here.
Well, congratulations on the film. For me, the scenes with the hauntings were both chilling but full of kind of a longing and curiosity. I just wanted to know, what do you do when planning these scenes to kind of orchestrate a tension that isn't told through cheap, loud jump scares, but through pacing and revealing different sorts of things like that?
I think that's where the collaboration with an actress, is vital. Because I'm not big on planning what I will do. I mean, I kind of write a screenplay and then I have no idea what will exactly be the style of the film. I'm not sure how I'm going to shoot it. And it's something that I kind of figure out like day after day of shooting based on the elements I have gathered, meaning sets, actors, crew. And I kind of feel my way into films and specifically into scenes. And of course, when it's about a character who is trying to communicate with something that's not exactly there, it's kind of challenging because you don't know how you're going to get away with that. So you at that point, and it's you're not dependent. I mean, you can't fix things with editing. You can't fix things by adding effects or whatever. You are very dependent on something that is building up within your character, and that is something where the creation of the actress, in this case Kristen Stewart, becomes essential. Because when I wrote the haunting scenes, I had no idea how long they would be. I had no idea exactly of what the set where I would be shooting would look like. Actually, what I had in mind was fairly different from what I ended up doing, because at some point I discovered with this house and I liked it, all of a sudden it was a tiny bit too much on the Gothic side for my taste initially, but I thought it was a very exciting, interesting, weird floor plan, which, gave something very genuine to those scenes. But ultimately, I had no idea how Kristen would deal with those scenes. For instance, I did not expect them to be that long. Sometimes I would describe a shot to Kristen, and I say, okay, so you start from here, you go there. At that point, you stop because you think you've heard something, and then you do a couple more steps, but then you go back. I would, but to me, it could have been done fast. Why not? But I realized when she was doing it that she was taking a lot of time, And I realized she was right, because watching the shot on my monitor, I realized that she had found the right pacing, because there was time for the audience to build up the tension and kind of imagine, you know. It just opened space, vital space for the imagination of the audience. And ultimately, when you're doing that kind of film, which has to do, again, with spirituality, the invisible, whatever word one will use, it's really all about having your audience be part of it, you know, and ultimately identify with the character on her quest.
Thank you very much.
Okay, another question over there.
Okay, hello. First of all, thank you for making such a wonderful movie. And so I remember the last line in the movie was, "Is it you, Louis, or is it just me?" And the answer, I assume, is positive, right? So
Yes.
it makes the movie more interesting than I thought. So I know it's not wise and a little bit stupid to ask the director what the story talks about or what you want to deliver to the audience, because obviously you want us audience to figure it out. But sorry, I need some keywords. So I really need them, and I'll just take it. You give me some ideas, and I will take care of the rest of the thing. Yeah, I promise. And an additional question is, do you know whether Kristen Stewart has her own personal shopper? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't think that Kristen is exactly as a personal shopper, but like any celebrity, you know, she doesn't do her own shopping. I mean, you know, when she has to dress for a function or for a red carpet or whatever, she has brands who kind of give her stuff, and she kind of picks her choices. But you know, so you don't call it a personal shopper, but ultimately this concept of personal shopping is very widely used. I mean, think of you know, a television talk show hosts or whatever, you know, they need to change, they need to look different, whatever, you know. So it's just the Americans have put this weird words in it. But it's the ending. I think it's Kristen who kind of figured it out. You know, it's the way I wrote it was. I wrote, I mean, the last line was, "Is it me?" And the ghost said, "Yes." And that's really, you know, it's when we started discussing the film with Kristen, it's like the one line that sounded awkward to her, and like the first day of the shoot, she came to me and she said, "You know, I think I found the answer to my question. I found the way to adapt the last line." And I said, and she wanted to tell me, and I said, "No, I don't want to know. I want you to say it when we will be shooting that scene, but I don't want to know." And she came up with, instead of "Is it me?" she came up with "Is it just me?" which ultimately is right. I mean, that makes for me sense of how the character of Maureen feels at that moment. I think that I think that what we call ghosts, what we call connecting with the supernatural, is ultimately a way of connecting with our own subconscious. You know, we are divided into, we have one half of us, one part of us is conscious, and another part of us is unconscious. And in the middle, you have this kind of gray zone where things are happening in our imagination that come to us, like art, for instance. We don't know how those things happen. We don't understand the creative process of our imagination. So I think that when you are going through the process of grieving, when you are alone, when you go through moments of fear and anxiety, and you feel that you are on the border of connecting with something else, when you start having strange experiences, in a poetic way, of course, like in this film, what you are actually connecting with is not exactly ghosts, it's you're having a dialogue with yourself, you're having some sort of dialogue with an unknown part of yourself that you don't have full control on. And I think the way to heal, the way to survive, the way to find some peace is by accepting that those things are not happening outside of you, but they are happening inside of you, and the solution is within you. I like to finish my films where another movie could start. And I think that the recovery of Maureen starts with that last line at the end of the film. Is that okay? Or, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we can take 2 more questions. Over here.
Good evening, Mr. Assayas. I have 2 questions about the story. Do you have a backstory about the water ghost, the girl who is floating? Because usually when we write a script, we give backstory to it.
Yeah, I don't give backstories to my actors or to my characters. I think I don't care about backstories. I'm interested with what happens on the screen and within the film. I think the backstory is something that's created by the audience or created by the actor. I mean, usually when an actor asks me for a backstory, I run away. I basically leave the job to him. It's it's whatever makes you feel comfortable. It's just I don't even want to know. I mean, invent it for yourself and use it when you need it. Use it. If for some reason it feels wrong, I will tell you. But it's your job to build. What I care for is that the emotions on the screens be genuine, and I want you to express some truth in those specific situations. I don't care so much about the logic of where that truth comes from. What's important is, I think that what is important is not the screenplay. What is important is not the ideas or the big ideas you have before making a film. Ultimately, it's the moment the camera is rolling and the actor is in front of it. And basically anything that I want, that for me is necessary to the film, is in the screenplay. I don't want to add a word to that. I'm not giving psychological explanations. I'm not giving, it's to me it has to be extremely simple but inhabited by honesty and truth.
And then how do you tell the actor or actress to express this kind of emotion accurately according to what you want?
Because I give them the part. I don't direct actors. I never give them any kind of explanations. I mean, when I meet them, even before shooting, I don't discuss the part or the very basics of it. I think that human emotions are universal and they are complex. They are ambiguous. There's no. It's only in I suppose not so good or conventional filmmaking that people react like machines to stimulation. I think that in real life our emotions, our feelings are a little bit more off, they are a little bit more strange, they are a little bit more complicated. So if you start putting words on emotions, it's a way of simplifying them and they will look fake. If you don't give explanations, you have a chance that the actor will have to do and deal with the complexity of what's going on.
Okay, very silly question. Who went out from the transparent, the automatic door after the jewelry. That
Oh, you tell me. You tell me.
in your mind.
Okay. Okay. Last question over there.
Hi Olivier, thank you for the film. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So I want to ask, the majority of the film is based on the idea of art, like the abstract art, the painting that Maureen did, and also like fashion. So I want to ask, what is the idea behind that, and also what it's like to work with Kristen Stewart for the second time?
I suppose that the simplest way I can answer you about art, it's maybe about explaining also in a certain way why I chose this connection with Hilma af Klint, who is this extraordinary woman artist of the early 20th century, who was also a medium and who was one of the inventors of modern art, and who has been unknown because her work has been hidden during most of the 20th century, and it only resurfaced a few years ago when there was a retrospective in Stockholm. I think the rediscovery of that artist has had two consequences, two effects. One is that it imposes on us to reconsider the history of art in two dimensions. One being that the invention of modern art by Kandinsky, Malevich, Kupka was always considered to be an all-male affair, and all of a sudden you realize that there was a woman who was at the origin of the greatest revolution in modern art. So I think that's is significant. And another dimension is her art makes sense of a pattern. Both Kandinsky, Mondrian, Malevich were extremely influenced by spirituality. They wrote about it, and their exploration of abstraction had to do with the spiritual quest. And in the case of Hilma af Klint, she goes one step further because she was convinced her hand was actually guided by the spirits. So it's very literal. In her case, the invention of modern art is a purely spiritual affair. So what I am expressing there, what I'm observing there in a certain way, is how essential is how art has taken the place of spirituality in a world that is becoming more and more materialistic, and where we have lost the relationship with the spiritual, because specifically in Western cultures where there is very little religion left, but it doesn't make, I think that whatever one beliefs are, it's totally a fact that the craving for spirituality is part of the human identity. It exists in every single culture at every single given moment in time, and in a certain way I suppose that the abstraction and modern art is in a strange way is connected to that story. And it's the personal shopper is very much about how difficult it is to reconnect with spirituality in Western cultures. It's and because there's no answer to a lot of the longings, there's no answer in terms of what we can do with grief. There's no answer to how to relate to the dead. Again, you know, there's no real answer to how we communicate with some sort of afterlife. I think we're all on our own with that, and we all have to invent or reinvent or restructure some kind of relationship there. And I think that's exactly the story of Maureen, and it's in that sense that the story of Maureen eventually could have some sort of universal echo, because it deals with something very basic that we all share.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess that's all the time we have, and thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.